So we've done those last 2 episodes have been, they've started a lot of dialogue. I think in a good way though. Like, it hasn't been this like, anytime you roll out something new, people tend to just want to shit on it.
Yeah. But you see, like even in the StrongFit community group we are on Facebook, it's a lot of good conversations. Yeah. That makes me happy and excited. Did you see the conversations are, how about, you know, they go like, how about this? Hey, I don't understand that. Could you guys help me with this and everything? Yeah. It's all I want to learn and not fuck you all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I disagree completely with.
Yeah.
It's not like they're, I found that pretty, I'm very happy about that, let's put it this way. Yeah. We're doing something right? Yeah. For the StrongFit community group to be so, please help. Like, you know, it's neat. You said there are 2 types of people in this world, the one that want to learn and the one that want to believe.
Yeah.
And on the StrongFit community group, we mostly get people wanting to learn. So that makes me happy. It does.
We've had, and it's interesting too, because especially on the nutrition, we talked about it on that episode.
I was really thinking it goes south.
There's a lot of dogma attached to nutrition, but even some of the people with quite a bit of science background who we've talked to, and who I specifically forwarded that episode to kind of see what they thought. It actually, other than a few questions with them really putting just chemistry first, which we'll get into later, it still didn't seem to be this.
I was expecting
what I wasn't expecting, which is a bunch of people to be like, you fucking idiots.
Yeah, this has been tried before. We done studies on this, it's all wrong.
Yeah.
I'd be like, whoops.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just not interested at all. They haven't watched it and nobody gives a shit, which is always possible, by the way. But yeah, so far we haven't had the haters yet. We had questions, which I love, but we had nobody going like, how dare you challenge my beliefs in life yet.
Well, and even those of us who've been kind of in with it for quite a little bit now, at least a few months, we're still figuring it out too. Like what I'm trying to do.
Not figuring out, but getting more precise.
Exactly, yes. Exactly. And then trying to use the same tool for different things too. You know, like I want to get to where I get lean enough to a certain point, and then just because it's.
Let's be honest. How do we get bigger?
Yeah, that's right. How do I get bigger doing this?
How do I get bigger, lose fat, and more performance?
Yeah. and
so I'm 19 again.
Yes. And for me,
but I'm smarter now.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to get to where, first off, it was good timing for me because I was kind of as big as I had been since I've been training. So it was good for me to be like, all right, let's reset, get a little leaner.
You did it the wrong way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The point is, because again, the point is not, by the way, that nutrition thing is not to lose weight.
No,
right?
Not at
it's
all.
Not to get a six-pack, it's none of that.
No.
You take it and you put it toward losing weight if you want to, toward getting a six-pack if you want to, but also gain muscle. Also, you do whatever you want with it. The point is, it's not a losing, because the guy says, is that a feel-better diet? Well, first of all diets should make you feel better. If they don't make you feel better, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
But no, it's, I guess in a way, but it's basically based on your nervous system, which we'll get into. But so, I just think we can apply this diet for you to do it correctly next time. So instead of jeopardizing your health, we can make you bigger, but just correctly.
Yeah.
That's always been the point of StrongFit. Is I'm not trying. Even if you don't want to get stronger, I don't know why you would not want to get stronger. But some people obviously want to do cardio. I think you're all crazy. But past that, good. Use the StrongFit to do more cardio.
Yeah.
StrongFit principles to get to more cardio.
And so we've been kicking around ideas, maybe the best way to approach it. And that's what I like that I'm seeing in the group when we're talking about it, is I'm seeing people say, well, how can I do this? Or I prefer this over this. How can I make this, without changing the actual bones of it, how can this help? How can this help? So for that, I'm really, really thankful for. What I have noticed still some is the people wanting to go chemistry first. And I think that has a lot to do, like you had mentioned when I brought it up, I was like, man, some of these questions are just like coming at us backwards. And you said that's kind of just what it's like to be a human. That approach, we just come at it from a when and how. It's about yourself. It's about...
Yes, but it's necessary. So in the last episode, we talked about test positive, test negative, right? And so we're going to go into all this today to explain why, for example, do people get so offended by certain things? Why is it that if I talk about nutrition, it challenges your sense of self?
Yeah.
Why? We're having a conversation. If I'm asking a question, So people, sometimes I'm not passing a judgment, I'm asking a question. And yet it will challenge your sense of self, right? And people are like, oh, they just get offended. I'm like, okay, but why? There's always a why. Like the fact that they go offended, that's just a what. I'm like, okay, but there has to be a behavior behind it and everything. And so what we saw in many times of people that go chemistry first is not necessarily a wanting to go into the scientific method and understanding why I say what I said. They just, their sense of self, their sense of belief got challenged. That's the problem, is instead of wanting to learn, they just want to believe. And so if what I say does not go in that direction of their belief, then the sense of self get challenged because they're back in task negative and they go, wait.
Yeah.
But by the way, it's necessary, like we'll talk about it at the end of the podcast, but to learn, first you have to start with a belief. You can't learn without believing first, in the sense of you're going to have to start with words and memorization. This is how you raise kids, right? You make them, look, those are the rules of society and you're going to follow those. Otherwise, you won't be able to go anywhere in life, right? You start jiu-jitsu, you have to first memorize the right technique. You have to be told what to do. That's just the way, that's how you start.
Yeah.
Basically, even the Alpha Zero style, there's a part of it that is memorization based.
Somewhere I had to learn the rules.
These rules, there's the rules of the game. So, right, so you need to start by defining the map. And that's words and memorization. So that's okay. The problem is if you get stuck there, then you stay in a belief system. To learn, you have to go into exploration, and then eventually, once you've explored and you've seen what you want, then you can start going into certain directions. The map is not the place, right? At first, you map things, words, memorization, that's okay. But then you have to move from the map, and you have to actually go into the place. That's where exploration comes in, and once you explore enough, then you know where to go. Problem is a lot of people stop at the mapping thing. So that's where studies come in.
Because they have this plugged-in understanding of this does this, and this does this, and this does this, and it makes sense to them. And they probably worked hard, spent a lot of time and money.
It's a beautiful map.
Yeah.
But that's all this is. It's a map. It's not a place.
And the thing, we talk about it with training. When these things come up to me, it always seems like there was a point where we thought that the sun revolved around the earth. There was a point when the earth was flat. That was that was the best that we knew.
But again,
but if everybody took
thank God we didn't stop there.
Right? Yes. Like if everyone's like, hey, this is the best we fucking know at this point, shut it down, man.
But this is, to me, this is basically we don't learn to learn anymore. There's no one to teach you how to learn anymore, right? That's what an apprenticeship is.
Yeah.
It's you map things out, but then you fucking go explore, right? And most people now stop at the map. We were at the seminar, like the big one in Utrecht, and there's a guy who's obviously going through school right now, exercise physiology. He must be right either the last year or the year before that, because his head was full of quotations and very precise numbers and everything. And I remember him saying, if you don't have an 800-pound deadlift, it's because you're not tough enough. I was like, you just called me a pussy, by the way. And he was dead serious about it, which to me was the craziest thing I've ever heard. He was like, so 600 pounds for a woman. You're just not tough enough, you're not motivated enough, or you just don't want to put the work. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, are you fucking insane? But you know what this is? That guy has a 315 deadlift.
Yeah.
That's what it means, right? Why? Because he never explored. So what does he have? He has a beautiful map, right? That tells him that the world is super simple, not even simple, easy. And then all you got to do, because chemical reaction is you do this, you get this chemical reaction, you get that result, and all you got to do is do this, and then you put 10 pounds every so often.
You just spend enough time on the path,
and then you get to 800-pound deadlift. They just have done it longer, and because they're tougher than mentally, but not structure has nothing. And I was like, but so in a way, see, that's a belief system, right? Those are people that stop at the mapping. They map everything. So you hear that a lot in those conversations when they start to go at studies. They go, hey, I have a study for you. I'm like, okay, so now we're making the map shinier. Awesome. At some point, right, you're going to have to go explore. The map is not the place. You're going to have to go try. And that's where a lot of people don't want to go there, because then it challenges your sense of self. Because now I'm asking you to go into from the safety of the task negative network, where your morals are, your sense of self, the map is, it's a safe place. Of course, the map is a safe place. Nothing happens on the map. You can make it say whatever the fuck you want to, because it's a map. Now I'm asking you to go into the real world. Yep, okay. And that challenges your sense of self. And now do you want to go back to believing, or now do you want to learn? And that's where we see the issues.
And I think the problem is anytime a person tries something new, I don't care what it is. If eating my freaking Black Panther Funko, if I decide that's my new diet, well, it's going to be a long time before they're doing studies on what it means to eat fucking plastic here.
Yeah.
But
that one would be fast. But yeah.
Now I'm not telling you to get out there and try it, but when someone comes out with something, and it seems to make a little bit of sense, I don't know why we pull back on things that are almost
proven to work.
They're proven, but really unrelated to the specifics that we're talking about.
You know what we don't have in, not even the medical science, like any time that relates to biology. When it comes to humans, you know what we don't have? We don't have what physics has. The reason physics is doing so well, that we have the iPhone, the computers, basically it's a hard science that rules everything we do, is because they have theoretical physicists. They have experimental physicists and they have theoretical physicists. The reason you need both is that you need a theoretical physicist to tell the experimental physicist where to look, what to measure. An experimental physicist is a guy who's going to measure everything. There's a cup of coffee, let me measure that. But if you let those guys rule, they'll just measure
all the things as they sit.
As they sit, but without connecting any of them together. The problem is how many things in life can you measure? A lot. Chances are you're going to miss a lot of them. So what you need is someone with a flashlight saying, how about you look over there? Yeah. So that's the problem we have when it comes to humans, is there is no theoretical humanist saying like, how about we measure that first?
Yeah.
Because right now what we have is 1,000 measurements that we can't connect. So what we have is, that's what Einstein said about Western science, having people scientists that can see 1,000 trees but miss the forest.
Yeah.
The reason is we don't have theoretical scientists when it comes to humans.
Yeah.
Right? We have nobody going like, if we put those two together, how about we measure that? And that's where I face all the time is me, I'm a theoretical scientist where I'm like, logical conclusions of this tells me we should measure that. There's either no test for it or nobody has done it or no one wants to do it. Or they go like, yeah, but we measure all the other stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you can connect them together. So
because we're measuring every single component almost in isolation, and we're measuring all those things completely unrelated to the lens with which we experience the world, your nervous system.
Yes.
So that's what's always interesting. It's like, well, I mean, protein is synthesized with this and that and this, and it's like, yeah, but like that mechanism operates. What is that? I just mix things together? No, I mean, like that mechanism is driven and experienced by me.
You know, like, this is like where you have generals and grunts.
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens if you let the grunts decide which war they're going to wage? They're only going to choose the wars they will win, because who would want to do anything else?
Nobody wants to go.
Nobody wants to go die.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes you need general to say, yeah, that's a tough battle, but we need to have it. I'm not asking you to understand, I'm asking you to go die. Yes, it's a horrible position to be in, but that's what the brightest mind go to general, because some battles need to be fought, right? And is it risky? Yes. But if you ask the grunts, then who would, in their right mind, want to go?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the experimental physicist. They're the grunts who do the hard work, the actual work. Those are the guys. But if you don't direct, if you don't go like, how about we look over there, then they'll just measure the stuff that keeps getting them the answers they want.
Yeah.
And then we're back into a belief system, because that's where words and numbers live. And that's the problem you see there, right? So we are basically becoming especially in the fitness industry, where we just pull studies that only guarantee that we are right. There's confirmation bias, and then there's the internet that makes it even better. But it's all based on studies without ever having an idea of what is it we're supposed to measure in the first place.
And I think you brought up a good point that the confirmation bias really comes out when we are just using words to defend something now. And
when your sense of self got challenged.
Exactly.
That's what this is.
It's like, all right, I'm just going to draw on all the words that I heard, have read, and everything, and just present this to you.
You know what this is, the study when they start to go is like, I got challenged, sense of self, but that's not what my belief is. And instead of saying, I believe in this, I'm going to use a study to look detached from the situation where actually I took it personally, which is really what the issue is.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing.
It's very interesting. Like, what I'm noticing though, so when we talk about this stuff, right, the chemistry, none of these things start with chemistry.
But yeah, okay, so you know, we talked about teleology, right, the Greeks? Right, okay, so you have the seed to be an orange tree and oak tree. Right, the chemistry is not the same. orange or oak tree, there's a lot of the same structure, but to make a seed of an oak or the seed of an orange, things change. So you can't just measure the chemistry of an orange tree saying that's what happens. No, the reason the chemistry is there is because it is an orange tree and it has an intent to produce other orange trees, and no matter what you do to it, it's going to stay an orange tree.
Yeah.
Like, how is that concept not the main concept first? Are you an orange tree or an oak tree? Shouldn't we look at that first? Because that's the issue. Is if you don't know if you're an orange tree or an oak tree, I can take both, measure the chemistry, and say there's a difference between this tree and this tree. But if I don't know that the difference is there because one is an orange and the other one is an oak tree, and say they're trees, they're all the same anyway. Yeah. It makes no difference. I'm like, fuck yeah, it makes a difference. But then you're gonna go, look, this is what happens when this happens. I'm like, aha, we don't know that. Because you put those two trees in a different ground. The orange tree is in this ground, the oak tree is in this ground. The reaction is different. Is the reaction different because it's a different ground or because their nature is different? Obviously, because their nature is different. Mm-hmm. That's not the way we do things. We do things based on, the ground is different, therefore you get a different chemistry reaction. Because we miss the fact that there's a why before the how.
Yeah.
And that's the theology, and that's where philosophy is so important within science, because if you miss the logical argument, you will measure the wrong things.
So what are we supposed to be measuring?
All right.
Or are we supposed to not
Okay,
measure?
so let's start. Yeah, no, exactly that, right? So let's start with the why. What is the structure? What is the ground upon which humans are built? Right. So if you go toward the age of reason and all that reason of that stuff, like you go René Descartes, and he said, I think, therefore I am. So our capacity to formulate rational thoughts define our soul and who we are as humans. All right. So it doesn't matter whether as a person you believe in this or not. As a group, we do. It's one of the founding principles of Western civilization. And this is where, as a group, we have evolved from. Descartes was like, 600 years ago now? He had definitely influenced Western society in that way of thinking. I'm like, okay, so now, let's talk about what being a human means from an evolutionary biology perspective, which we did not have back then. Now we do. We have evolutionary biology. Let's see what it means to be a human. The structure of the humans is a nervous system. Why do I say that? Because it's 500 million years old. It's the oldest one. So just to give you an idea, it's about, let's say, at least 300 million years old. We know that, and I'm going to explain how. We've been human for 300,000 years. That's how we consider humans. So it's 1,000 times, the nervous system is 1,000 times older than us as humans, right? Vagus nerve is toward us as mammals, million years old. The rational part of your brain that allows you to have those words is 100,000 years old, 3,000 times younger than the nervous system. Guess who comes first?
Yeah.
So how do we know 3 million years old, and how do we know it's a structure? Jordan Peterson, great mind, talks about the lobsters all the time, and it's so funny with the lobsters because he defines humans in a way which I love. So lobsters have a nervous system that is based on serotonin, just like ours, and something called octopamine, something like that. Anyway, serotonin, just like us, right? They have neurons, very established, so we were able to crisscross and see what happens. But their nervous system is so close to ours that antidepressants work on lobsters. Like you give them Prozac, they feel all going like, hey, that works well, so that they got all chill and everything. So they conducted entire experiments on the lobsters. Do you know that the lobster never stops growing?
Really?
Yeah, it never stops growing. So how does he grow? He grows into his shell up until the moment where he's so uncomfortable, he goes into a hole, breaks his shell open to basically build a newer, bigger one so that he can get bigger, and then he keeps doing this throughout his life. There's a story. You know what happens if you give antidepressants to a lobster? He stops being uncomfortable and he stops growing.
Interesting.
What is that? Yeah, right. Okay, best part. Female lobsters, right? So a lobster, so how do lobsters basically fight for that hole where they're going to build their shell? Because that matters, because the female lobster is going to come into this. First of all is they start posturing. They go literally like this with their claws. And if you have bigger claws, I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave now. That's literally how lobsters go. If that doesn't work, then they spray a liquid saying like, this is who I am. Sex, dry, biological levels and everything. So they feel each other, they look at the claws, and usually goes one like, yeah, you're a badass, I'm going to go. If that doesn't work, second part, they start to posture up, but close to each other, going like this, right? And then what? Yeah. They go like this, and they display signs of aggression until at some point, guys, like, he's a lot bigger than me, and he's not backing down. I'm going to leave now. And if that doesn't work, then they fight.
Gotcha.
Right? Very interesting part is after they fight, the loser, and it's been shown, the loser, once he has lost the fight, becomes a loser. In the sense of his nervous system gets shut down, which means he produces less serotonin, less cockiness, less confidence, less everything. His posture changes.
So the next time he comes head to head with a bad dude,
he's there. He cowers.
Yeah.
So the more he loses, the more he cowers. Isn't that fucking crazy? And so what they showed is that the one that wins basically have a surge of serotonin. You know what serotonin does? It controls posture. If they have serotonin, right away they go like this. So they show more their claws, and they have literally an effect on the posture of the fucking lobster. Serotonin affects the posture. Guess what? Shoulders back, external torque, sympathetic reaction. The more serotonin he has, the more cocky that fucker is. Oh, come on, it's so good. Isn't that fucking funny? So you give a Prozac to lose. So how do they know that? They took the loser, right, who's fucking now cowering. They give him serotonin. Went back to next time the lobster comes, he was bringing back up.
Yeah, and the other guy's like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, that last time. So we give them Prozac, and right away they were like, hey, they acted more confident, better, less in what we call depression.
Interesting.
Right. So so the female lobster sees that. Oh, that's my favorite part. The female lobster sees that. She's like, that's a badass. Right? She's like, he has the biggest hole where I can go because, why does that matter? Because there's only one way she can mate. I'm going to explain, but this is awesome. So she goes to the lobster and she starts going like, hey, spray stuff and go like, hey, what's up? Problem is the big badass is still in the fight mode. So he's like, what? No, I'm here to kick some ass. He's like, yeah, but I'm like, so until he actually gets seduced and he starts to go, hey, what's up? Like, so she'll keep going around and saying like, hey, until guy goes, hey. But if it's the wrong one, he's like, no, you're not good enough, sorry. So he'll keep going like this, all strutting like a cocky bastard until he gets very interested in the girl. And then once he gets interested in the girl, they go under. So that woman will, that lobster, that female lobster, will only look for mating once her shell starts to soften. Why? Because she can only mate, she mates only without a shell. Gotcha. She cannot mate when she has a shell on. So
seems sensible.
Oh no, wait. So she has to soften herself to mate with the guy. She has to make herself vulnerable by breaking up her shell open. And then she goes and she buries herself into that hole with the guy, and then she can mate. But to mate, she needs to be vulnerable, and it's so good. And then it goes on like that, and then what does she do after that? She builds a harder shell for a couple of weeks, and then she takes off. Yes! I'm like, I understand my teenage years now. Oh, yeah, I get it. That's every teenage boy going like,
So,
it's so good.
There's a lot, obviously.
Okay,
there's a lot of parallel there.
Okay, that's 300 million years old nervous system. That's 1,000 times older than when we started to be humans. So,
let's back up. What exactly now in that purpose for them? The nervous system on its own, their nervous system, what we believe to be ours, is based around, from what I can see, solely based on survival of the individual and then the species.
Yeah, but I think, okay, that's a how.
Right, like
that's
breeding,
not a why.
Right?
That's a how, that's not a why.
Okay.
This is the how. I believe there is a how. There is a why behind it. I believe evolution is a alpha zero, 1 trillion times greater. So I don't want to go into a religious discussion, but in that sense, I believe we are worshipping the wrong God. I think if there is a God, it's evolution, in the sense of he has an intent, just like teleology, like the oak tree and everything. Life has an intent. That's Schrödinger, right? Yeah. And evolution is life, basically. I think life is far smarter in that sense, right? It has an intent, right? And it's far more complex and it's far smarter than us, and we don't understand how far the ramifications go. We are treating life as it's that thing that happens, just like chemistry. bunch of stuff happen is just to make you breathe. And I think that's a very, that's a simplistic way of looking at life, because we still believe we're on the top of we are top of the food chain, but we're not smarter than life, even though we think so. And I think a lot of stuff that we do, like the research of AI, artificial intelligence, to me, is just trying to figure out how evolution does something, how life does something, and trying to put it into a mathematical formula so we can use what life does at 1,000th of the thousandth of its degree.
Which is still extremely powerful for us.
For us, it's extremely powerful, but I think the point we're missing is that life is doing it 10 billion times better. So I think the nervous system is a background, is the backbone, if you want, of animals. Like evolution, life has been at it for a very long time, and figure out a way to create a code. So if we were to look at it in a computer term so we can understand, it's basically life created the matrix. Life is not the matrix, but life created a matrix where all humans can live, right? In that case, life created a matrix where all life can live, like all its babies on Earth, which is all the living beings on Earth, are being created. They needed a matrix to live through, and it's basically started with nervous system. All animals have a nervous system. Not all animals have brains. The brain came after the nervous system. The nervous system seems to be the background for all animals, right? And so the life is the fucking machines in the machine world, right? And the matrix is the nervous system, so it allows us to move forward, basically gives us the backbone of everything that we do. We share it with other animals. So that part, in a sense, is not the human part. It's something we share with many, many other animals. And it's not chemistry-based, first of all. Nervous system is based on electrical impulse, and also, most likely, this is where quantum biology is going with this, it's more like a quantum mechanical reaction than anything else. Like, for example, if you look at quantum mechanical, is magnetism and electric stimulation, so electromagnetism force. That's quantum biology for you right there. It's like, for example, some birds can see the magnetic fields, right? We know that's because of magnetite, where magnetite is a bunch of crystals form, and then they point one way or another, basically based on the magnetic field of the Earth. So we know the magnetic field of the Earth resonates through magnetite. We happen to have magnetite coding our nervous system and brain. Like, it's the most magnetic substance on Earth. It's coding our brain and nervous system everywhere. We are sensitive to the magnetic fields of Earth. Maybe not as much as those birds, I can actually see them for when we understand. But why? Because they have a fucking nervous system and we're close enough to them that we all share this. By the way, imagine the wonders we could do if we could actually control all this. I mean, we could see magnetic fields just like birds do. Imagine if we could tap into what is the underlying structure of everything. If we could tap into the matrix, imagine what we could do with it. But it is not a human thing. It is a life thing. Right? And so that's why, to me, everything starts with the nervous system. It is the oldest thing. It is the thing nature has spent the most time on. It is the most evolved thing we have. The most powerful thing we have is the nervous system. And it starts there. And chemistry is a how, not a why. We have to start at the nervous system. So we have to understand the nervous system first before we can do anything else.
And I want to emphasize that point too, like you said, that the chemistry is the how. After.
There's a reason why the chemistry happens. Because that's actually some of the questions we had was with serotonin. Like, people were like, okay, so that came from the conversation about nutrition. And they were like, all right, so serotonin, starch, carbs creates a spike in serotonin, creates a parasympathetic reaction. And that became the explanation why you should have carbs at night. And I was like, whoa. Who said serotonin triggers a parasympathetic reaction? It does sometimes, but for example, in lobsters, it's a sympathetic reaction. Like serotonin, they get more aggressive, they have external torque posture, that's all sympathetic reaction. So the problem is serotonin is being used, by the way, it's produced in your stomach by itself, it's produced in your brain, but they're missing the point. The point is not that carbs produce serotonin, but serotonin can be associated with sympathetic reaction as well. So you took one thing, which is serotonin parasympathetic, which happens in some cases, and then you make a conclusion based on that. I'm like, no. It's not serotonin created the parasympathetic. That situation got your nervous system to create a parasympathetic response that produced serotonin,
that's what
not the other way around. And that's where the problem is you're going the wrong way with this.
And that's the thing that I think every time when we talk about nutrition, especially with what we're doing in nutrition, is that comes up all the time.
Yes, yeah, because they go at chemical reaction, and I'm like, but it, again.
What's driving the reaction?
So, why, how, what?
Yeah.
You can't go what, how, why, right? You have to start with a why, and then after that, we go back to the oak tree versus the orange tree. You're looking at the wrong thing. First, you have to go teleology. You have to go, why would the system, so what happens usually is a reaction occurred. Something came at you, whatever it is. That creates a nervous system to react. That will create a chemical reaction. So you can look at the chemical reaction without looking at the context in which it happened, which is whatever the fuck happened in the world at that time. Yeah. And so we never put it in context.
Because a lot of it gets viewed as those things are happening completely automatically and that they're separate from our interpretation of the world around us. Like it's completely separate.
Exactly,
right?
and that's the biggest error you can make.
And I think like one of the interesting things too when we talk about this is the effect that the nervous system can have. The best example I ever heard was, I'm not going to do it here, but it's like nails on a chalkboard. You know, if you really think about what, like physically, what a sound is. What is this? It is simply air moving.
Yep, exactly.
You know, you see all the speaker is it's moving air. So something you're hearing.
So they should all be the same, right?
Then why in the world does some music make you feel a certain way than another? Why does just on here will make you fucking lose your mind?
Feel it like
you feel it here, you freak out. And if someone's doing it,
there's no words
you
that
will
can stop
hate that person until that stops. And there is nothing you can do about it.
And words don't help you on this one, but it's something that hits you deep inside.
And why is it? Because it is purely a sound. And that's the thing that people, like that's the example I always bring up, is that that's just sound. It is just air. That's it. And it's, if you plug your damn ears, it goes away completely. And yet, as soon as you start to experience it, your entire body
will react to something.
Will react completely.
Every time the same, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't control it. Yep.
And I think that's the way, like that's how it makes sense to me when I start to think about those types of things. It's like this is going to happen. These are how my system is going to react to this, because that's just what it does.
So if we're going to study music or sounds, then we need to understand that certain sounds will produce the reaction we want, others won't. But if you just study sounds like it's on a piece of paper and makes no difference, imagine the music you will produce. Half the time,
Well, it's very simple. Like if you look at songs that are, if you want somebody to feel sad or melancholy or things like that, you look at it's the same four chords, same four notes.
It's not the words.
It's not the words. It is the sound.
Yep.
That somehow
it's a specific, and we know.
Exactly.
And how do we know? Through exploration.
Yeah.
We didn't map it out.
Yeah. So I think, and that's kind of my favorite analogy when I talk about how the nervous system can affect.
Exactly.
You receive an input, and your everything is affected by that input.
Yeah. So perfect example, right? If you were to put the right chords that make you sad, you could put cheerful words in that song and still feel sad.
Yeah.
You could go the other way, where heavy metal, you put super sad words, won't matter, you'd be like this.
Yeah.
Exactly. So see, it's not about words, it's first about the context. And the context is defined by the nervous system.
Yeah, I think...
That's the point I was trying to make when I talk about the energy systems. And I was saying the nervous system supersedes the energy systems.
Yeah.
And my example was with the ocean, right? I can make you train in a pool, but then I make you go in the ocean. If you don't like the ocean, your heart rate goes up, all the training in the pool is gone. Because now you're going, and you're going to gas out, and you're going to do half of what you should be able to do.
That's an interesting point. I don't want to divert too far, but they always talk about when I used to. Well, you're right. Divert. It's not my job to divert.
It's
guys.
my job. Tyler
is I remember in sports, like it was always, no matter how hard you trained, and I wasn't the one who trained the hardest, but no matter how good a condition you showed up into, what is game shape?
Yeah, game day.
Game shape, and game shape. I'm having played basketball and football. Those sports are not anymore. You're not doing anymore. You're not running any faster.
Probably less.
And probably less. And yet, you get fucking half a series in on your first football game of the year, and you're like, what is happening? Now, I know what's happening.
Yeah.
It's fucking lights are on, everybody's here.
You know what this is about?
You're now executing in a state that's
It's not about conditioning anymore. It's about how you handle yourself.
Exactly.
That was when I was talking on Scott's podcast, the Sisu Way. I've seen that in Jiu-Jitsu a lot. It's most of the time they all want to learn technique, and I'm like, And I'm sorry to say, but it's not about the technique. It's about how you handle yourself in a tough situation.
Yeah.
Because what do you think you gas out?
Yeah, and it's like you can learn the technique like we talked in the beginning, right?
And you have to. Don't get me wrong. You have to. Don't get me wrong.
But you also have to figure out how to pull that out of your back pocket when you're fucking scared and someone's gonna strangle you.
So like the whole memorization thing. Yeah, it's awesome. Let's put it in real life.
Yeah.
And then it goes straight out the window.
Yeah. I think that's a good opportunity for us to move to the next thing.
So nervous system, let's define it again, just because sometimes I forget to mention. So nervous system, you have two sides. You have the parasympathetic side, which is where digestion, flow, like socialization lives. Then you have the side that is called the sympathetic, where fight and flight happens, where difference between fight and flight is you want to be in one, you don't want to be in the other.
Gotcha.
Into the situation. And sometimes they also talk to each other. Sometimes they talk against each other, which have very bad effects on you. Sometimes they talk to each other, which allows you to be at your best. It's very important because people have to understand you're not always just in sympathetic or only in sympathetic. That's something that happens a lot with biology or like medical sciences. They have the tendency to treat this like we are either full parasympathetic, which is full digestion or full socialization, or you're in full fight or full flight, which is not true. There are moments where you're in full in one, fully the other one. You have moments where they talk against each other, which is bad, and you have times when they talk to each other, which is great. So those are different situations, and you have to know which one is which to understand why you are in the state you're in.
And I think figuring out how those things can work together is also the key to you. You're never in control, if you will, but being aware of what causes some of those reactions to things
will allow you to control it. Actually, I do believe you're in control. You're not always in control, but there's a line of communication, right? I believe basically, we're going to talk about it, there is 3 voices in your body. There's your nervous system, which is to me the primary voice. You have your stomach, your gut flora that also talks to you, and you have your rational brain that talks to you as well.
Our word brain.
Our word brain, right? It talks a lot. You need to have all 3 voices saying the same thing, otherwise shit happens.
Yeah.
Right, so I believe if you only think that's I think therefore I am, that the voice that matters, the only voice that makes you human, that it's the only one you listen to should be your rational brain, most likely you're going to miss the other voices and you're going to have a conflict between all 3, and that conflict is where most problems come from. So for you to resolve the conflict, you're going to have to be able to listen to the other voices. You can't listen to those voices if you don't know they're there, because that means you shut yourself off from them. Too many times you see reaction nervous system trying to tell you something or asking a question, being completely put aside, going like, doesn't matter. Like you get angry, no, I'm not. And so you block anger, but you didn't block it. It's still there. The nervous system is still have that anger. It's going to store it usually in your body.
Yeah, you
try
to rationalize it away. You're like, now it's time. I'm a fucking adult.
But guess what? That anger is still there. You're just not listening to the voice. That doesn't mean the voice went away. It didn't. All it did was to store it somewhere. Anger would be in your lumbar erector. So now your back is going to blow up every time you deadlift because you haven't dealt with the anger. And guess what? Your nervous system is the strongest voice, and it's going to stay there until you deal with it. That's why a trauma that is not solved will get reenacted all the time, because your nervous system is like, no, I'm talking. It's like, and then he's going to keep talking until you listen, right? So sometimes your nervous system is asking questions, sometimes he's telling you something. If you block that voice, you can't. You cannot listen to it, but you're not stopping it.
Yeah.
So it will just come back and speak louder and louder and louder, and you're going to keep blowing up your lower back because you never express anger every single fucking session.
Yeah.
And that's a very important part, right? Because you have to understand it's a synergy of those voices that make you at your greatest level. You cannot ignore the voices.
One of the voices you mentioned was the gut.
Yes. Okay.
And I remember this, like, the gut biome is a thing that I think is, from my limited understanding, has very, very, very little overall understanding of what it really does.
Because we don't even know that much. Yes.
Yeah. And the scale is enormous, billions and billions and billions of bacteria, extremely advanced, and it is a full communication network with your brain.
It's the first brain. It's not even the second brain, it's the first brain. So the reason we don't know that much is because 80% of those bacteria we cannot grow in a petri dish. So we can't study them in that sense. It took genetical mapping for us to start to be able to see what they are based on their decay.
Gotcha.
So then we can study that and see where they come from, but we can't grow them. So we are like, who the fuck knows? So that means we started studying them 18 years ago.
And you think like, there was a story that I had heard, this was a long time ago, this was before I didn't even relate this to a gut biome communication issue, right? But there was this couple in, I don't know, remember when it was, 70s or 80s, and they were stranded for like 6 months out in the middle of the ocean.
A couple?
A couple.
Did the marriage survive? Oh, fuck me. And then you survive for...
You're either good, but there's no way you talk to each other after that for at least a week. Right?
I want to know, I want to talk, I would like
Maybe
to know.
we should call. That would be
come on, that'd be a podcast. So how long before, like, did you solve all problems?
Yes.
Did you talk about all of them since you ever met?
Or what happens is she probably spent the, I'm gonna get trouble. She spent the whole time bringing up the girl you used to date 10 years before or something.
Was she nagging about you not making the dishes? Or at some point you're like, fuck it.
You're like, oh, right.
So many questions I have.
But what had happened was, so there was like 6 months they were stranded, and they were able to catch some fish and shit to stay alive. And but after a while they started to, and they had never experienced this before, but they were eating the fish enough to stay alive, so they didn't need to eat anything in addition to. But also they were craving the fish eyes, the eyeballs of the fish, which is not my. If I look at a fish,
it's not the first thing I eat.
With fish, there's not a lot on the list when I look at it that is appetizing to me, really. But the eyes are not on that list for sure. Yeah. And it turns out that the eyes of the fish that they were eating is extremely rich in vitamin C, which I guess when you're stranded at sea is...
It's called scurvy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what leads to scurvy, is you get completely depleted. But they were completely unaware of this. They just craved the fish eyes.
I didn't even know.
And it was just what they had, so they started eating it. Which is very interesting, right? So
where does that
all of a sudden your body is experiencing a deficit. And when that communication network is life or death now at this point.
Now it speaks very loud.
It screams real fucking loud. Because do you know how loud my body would have to scream to make me spoon a fisheye out and
go like,
eat it raw?
By the way, it's not even like I need to eat this. It's like I want this.
Yes.
There's a universe of difference there.
Yeah,
we do a lot of things because
craving.
Yes, exactly.
That's not I should eat that.
No, because I read in a book I should eat this, therefore I'm going to eat, and within 2 weeks you stop. It's a craving. It's something that tells you to eat and makes you eat it.
Yeah.
Take action, not just go, I should eat that. Yeah. No, it made you take action going because, like, I want this.
And this clarification is important, because how many of people know what they should be eating and don't fucking do it?
Yeah. Well, that's...
Right? So you know what you should. You know what you should eat
stop
and you don't
having,
do it.
Yeah, stop having carbs
so
all day.
So it's the craving.
Exactly.
Is a very different thing.
Right.
And that is a very powerful
Isn't that what the problem with dieting is?
It is it.
I mean, not dieting, by the way, just eating healthy. If you say eating healthy, people are like, oh no, I crave this or I crave that. That's the problem.
I think that's what the diet is you controlling your craving. Like you're either completely fighting yourself completely, and you're on borrowed time, and you're always working against yourself. And
that is a question. How come we're not asking that question, by the way? Well, it's like, if you have cravings and you quit your diet because of cravings, what do? We blame the person. You're just weak.
Yeah. Tough
it up. Suck it up, it's only 12 weeks.
Yeah. But it's just chicken and broccoli, dude.
Yeah, I mean, all day. But it's like, but I want chocolate. Yeah, just don't eat it. If it was that simple, then we wouldn't see the humongous percentage of people dropping off nutrition. We wouldn't be losing this war if it was as simple. My point was always, guys, there's a why, and it's far more powerful, and it goes a lot deeper than you think. Again, like I think therefore IMC, we all think like your rational brain should control cravings. My point is no, it's the other way around. Your cravings will shift your rational brain. What is interesting is how then, all right, so the vitamin C example is an extreme one. Not really. But why do people crave pizza and cake and ice cream, blah, blah, like. Right, so let's go about that. So the gut flora, because I didn't do that in the nutrition because we didn't have time, but I want to go into this because it's extremely powerful idea and so interesting. There's going to be so many Nobel Prizes coming out of this study because it tells you where the behavior goes. you have, first of all, the gut flora produces his own endocrine system. It produces his own hormones and stuff like that. This is where serotonin also is being built. And so the number of things there that shows you the power of it. This is an old system, older than your rational brain. So it's not the second brain that you have. It's the first one. If we look by his age, it was built before the other one.
So before you go further, that's before our rational brain. Meaning, when we diet traditionally, do you believe then that we're just trying to rationalize our way past that? We're really skipping an entire layer of the operating system.
I think this is where our human ego has screwed us the most. This is where I understand why Descartes said, I think therefore I am. He was trying to promote the idea of reason over other things, but it was still, to me, there's still a Christian idea of the animal side versus the human side, right? But the problem is, I think we fundamentally misunderstand. We think rational brain is 80%, and then the rest is 20%, where I think it's the other way around. I think it's 80% nervous system and gut flora, and it's 20% our rational brain. But imagine if I'm right, imagine what it means as a human being. On the philosophical perspective, on a religious perspective, imagine the number of ideas we would have to rewrite if we were to understand that the nervous system and the gut flora are the primary movers of our lives. It is not a comfortable conversation to have for many people, because how much of it is you then?
And I think a lot of people's identities, though, are wrapped up into their thinking brain,
their belief,
and the way that we think with words. And these don't come up that way. But what I mean is the walking past the pastry aisle and going, that's not your brain's not talking. That's not a sensation that you're.
The smell where you go like.
That is right.
Why do you think smell triggers so much stuff more than words? Smell triggers, we know. Smell triggers memories way more than words. Right? How come? Okay, but that, first. Exactly. But that now you're starting to get into. People don't realize how hard of a conversation this is, because they think that on their personal level they don't necessarily think I think therefore I am. But that's not the point. The point is not you on a personal level. The point is us as a group, right? As a society, we've been evolving for over 600 years, thinking this is what makes me human. This is what makes me me. And I don't think that's true at all. And that's the problem.
Where then, like, as far as the gut biome, let's get into a little bit on the nutrition side of things.
So gut flora. So first of all, you have to understand that some of those bacteria have a genome, like a DNA sequencing, that is 100 times more complex than yours as a human being. Again, human at the top of the food chain, that's true. But us genetically superior to everybody, that's not true at all. Those bacteria have, again, a DNA sequencing that is 100 times more complex than ours. All right, so you have to understand that you have a bunch of little aliens, living creatures that are, they're not. So we think the brain decides everything. Everything else is a factory, a chemical factory obeying, just taking orders, and it's like a machine, right? It's a chemical factory just doing whatever the brain says. And that's not true at all. Let's start with the gut flora. It's a bunch of living creatures that are not related to you in any shape or form. So you have a bunch of little aliens that produce hormones, and on top of it, the entire stomach is coated with, I think it's 100 million nerve cells, basically. It's the area of the body where there's the most nerve connections, right? They produce their own hormones, they have their own voice, and they communicate to the nervous system. It is your first brain. The amount of things it makes you do, you don't understand. By definition, you don't understand.
Right? And it's not just food things.
You know because it talks to your nervous system, and your nervous system decides everything. So that means those fuckers get to tell you what to do.
And you'll react differently to things that go on in your world based on how it goes.
Because on that voice. So the problem, it's not a problem, but now we need to understand those voices in order to know where we are. So what we discovered over the last 18 years is, for example, you have the bacteroids. So you have enterotypes of those bacteria. By the way, these bacteria, microbes, and viruses in your stomach. We don't even know what the viruses are doing. We have no fucking clue. Those bacteria that is in your gut flora, right, in your stomach, we found some in the brain. Same ones. We don't even know how they get there. You're not supposed to get bacteria into the brain. You would die, right? We don't even know how they go through. But we found it on cadavers. They start looking, but they know what to look for. Suddenly they realize some of those bacteria are in your brain. They are attracted to the fat and sugar in your brain.
Interesting.
we have a bunch of aliens telling us what to do. Like evasion of the body snatchers, it happened a long time ago. They were always there. Like that's the problem is, you know who's the body snatchers? Us, the rational brain. Yeah, they were already there. We got in to their shit. But anyway, that's a long conversation. But so you have different enterotypes, right? And they do different things. For example, you have basically 3 enterotypes, 90% plus. You have the bacteroids, what is called a Prevotella, what is called a Ruminococcus, right? Let's talk about those two because that's what matters to us. The bacteroids are responsible for processing protein, saturated fats, and BCAAs, right? So when the bacteroids talk, they talk about processing protein, saturated fats, and BCAAs. Those 3 produces that voice. Prevotella is in charge of carbs and sugars. When you have carbs, any carbs or sugar, they basically talk to the Prevotella and the Prevotella answers back. When it's saturated fats and protein and BCAAs, it's bacteroids talk and then they answer back. So the communication line is very clear between those 2. By the way, we know carbs trigger the sympathetic nervous system. It's been proven. I have the studies. I'll post them for whoever wants to see them. That means that carbs, sympathetic, Prevotella, you get a communication between that group. Protein is toward the parasympathetic side because it's more like it needs very specific thing to digest protein, right? Which is not necessary for the carbs because they start dissolving orally, in the mouth, orally and everything. So then they have a voice that goes between the bacteroids, parasympathetic, and protein. So you can see that there are 2 voices like that. That's why carbs trigger a completely different reaction from you than protein does, just not on the nervous system wise, in your gut flora as well. Those colonies get to also, by feeding them, talk to your nervous system that will then talk to you. That is you, really. So over time, if you feed one colony over the other, it grows. That means if you keep eating carbs, the Prevotella will grow and will have a stronger voice talking to your nervous system. Do you think that matters?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So you take a kid who growing up in Africa, this has been tested, right? Who lives in a very harsh situation with less food. Guess what? We've seen the Prevotella going up like crazy. Why? Because they get more legumes, more starch, right? But you also see basically a greater sympathetic reaction because they're always hungry. That's a sympathetic reaction, right? But then they have carbs. So we saw that the Prevotella colonies were, their biodiversity was so much less than a kid grew up in Europe, for example, that has more food being thrown at him, less of a rough situation, and he's being fed constantly. The biodiversity of the gut flora was far superior than a kid who grew up in Africa on starch, less protein, and you'll see the behavior between the 2 is also different. Why? Because he grew up with a different voice that will affect the nervous system, right? And then you want to bet that their sympathetic nervous system is a lot more developed than the other.
We're down to 1 camera.
Okay.
Let me double check.
1 second.
Production pause.
Production pause.
We're still good over here. So we're down to the 1 camera. We're good to go.
We don't have the other. You want to switch to the other?
I could only charge 1 of them at a time since we just got here. We're all right.
Okay.
That one, we look really good in that angle.
Yeah, I like it. Well, Mathäus will make his magic work.
I hope so.
There you go.
So what I think is interesting about this, though, you had mentioned something, that the things that now these bacteria crave, that they're used to consuming, when you start to remove that from them, they speak even louder, right? Until
they
die.
So basically, yeah, it's exactly that, right? But it takes time. So you have a constant, not a tug of war, but there's a constant communication line open between the nervous system and that colony. And then, like everything else, he wants to live, and so he's like, dude, bring it on. And so, whoop, here goes the craving.
Yeah.
And then you're like, sugar, sympathetic, and everybody's happy.
And do you think like that, the response is, if that system craving carbs, right, the bacteria that consume carbohydrates and sugar, if I am eating a lot of them and then all of a sudden I stop, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get my shit together. I'm not just going to eat fucking ice cream every day or whatever. And as soon as I stop, is that capable of then driving me into a sympathetic state in order to...
But that's the key. Yeah, exactly. So what is he going to do? So now the Prevotella, right, is like, I need more, right? Who wants to die? So I need more. So therefore, the connection to the sympathetic right? Yeah. Is there, so he talks. The only one that listens is the sympathetic side, because that's the way it works. And the sympathetic side is going to be like, okay, let's go get carbs. So, but in a sympathetic way. So what does that mean? Angry. Yeah. Fuck, I need carbs.
What does
like? Why am I always angry now? If I don't have sugar, I'm angry. I'm an asshole to my wife. I need carbs, right? Because that's the way the Prevotella talks. He only talks to the sympathetic side. Not only, but you get the idea.
And I can speak on this very. It's one of the few things that I am very, very in tune on, is like when I am just hungry, not necessarily for what I'm hungry for, but just when I'm hungry and what my mood is like. And when I was eating a lot and training a lot to get big, all those things, if I was ever hungry, it was fucking life or death. Like, and
by the way,
and then not only that, when you don't have maybe the best relationship with food, when I was hungry and I'd stress about it, I wouldn't ever decide to eat something healthy.
No,
when I was hungry, my decision making was way on the other end of just
but it wasn't. You were just in the sympathetic state. So when you're hungry, by the way, you enter a sympathetic state. That's why the fasting works. Yeah. It's because literally you need to hunt. So it's a trigger for a sympathetic reaction. You're in sympathetic, that's normal. Sympathetic talks to somebody in the stomach. It's the Prevotella. That's the communication line. So naturally, you're going to crave sugar first. Yeah. And the sympathetic wants to be fed because he wants, back to teleology, as his own intent, he wants to be fed. So all this means that when you're hungry, you're going to go toward carbs more. Because you'll notice the hunger for protein is not the same thing as the hunger for carbs.
Totally different.
The craving is completely different because it is not the same voice. It is for protein, it's going to be the bacteroids and the parasympathetic, which has a completely different voice than the sympathetic. So anytime you go sympathetic in life for a fight, you'll crave carbs. Because basically that communication line is Prevotella, starch, and all that stuff goes, hey, versus, well, it's not the same voice. But those voices are the one deciding which way you go. You usually think that it's your words and your rational brain making a decision, where actually it is not.
And
it's just not comfortable to think like that.
And after about probably 4 days, 5 days of like really strict adherence to the nutrition stuff we've been working on, that changed completely. That was completely gone.
Yeah, because now basically, so you can't kill the Prevotella in 5 days, but the other side is going to start talking, and now you're listening.
And all of a sudden, I'm just not hungry.
Yep. There's also the problem with hunger, where a lot of us think we're hungry, where actually we are not. It's a sympathetic who wants to be fed, but he doesn't want to be fed food. You have to understand, the sympathetic inhibits digestion, kills digestion. So when the sympathetic wants to be fed, he doesn't want food. He wants more sympathetic reaction. He wants either a very high glycemic sugar. Why? Because they don't require digestion. They start to dissolve, so enzymes in the mouth. He wants coffee, he wants alcohol. Why? Because there's no digestion required, and the alcohol promotes a sympathetic reaction. He wants to be angry. Why? Because that's a sympathetic reaction. He wants to fight. Why? Because that's a sympathetic reaction. So
you just described like my average Saturday night.
Yeah, yeah. Like way back then, right?
Coffee,
booze, carbs, fight at the end.
Sugar, we fight.
Like, go shoot some guns naked on the porch of your house. That's called Sunday. That's a whole different ballgame. I don't want to picture that, but whatever. But the idea is a lot of, because I realized that in myself too. Like what I thought was hunger was actually me freaking out. And me freaking out did that. I thought it's me freaking out. What I realized, it was just my sympathetic wanted to be fed.
Yeah.
But I associate it with food. Why? Who the fuck knows? Maybe because of something that happened in my childhood. I remember
I think that's just that's what we do. You know what I mean?
I think that comes from
at the core of the things that we do as people.
Yeah.
There's things you just have to do to fucking stay alive, and eating is one of them.
Yeah, but I don't think, I think that one is on me. I think that's me who at some point associated sympathetic with sugar.
But you're not the only one.
No, I'm not the only one, but like, for example, you know what I remember? I remember my mother, like she was a Jane Fonda person, like, and that fucking bitch seems to live to torture me. I don't know what she was so fucking, that psycho did stuff in my childhood, so maybe over time I'll go over the stories, but some of the stuff. But one of them, basically, that lasted 6 months where I was only fed steamed vegetables.
Christ.
I'm fucking 9 or 10.
Really?
Can you imagine growing? Like, why? Because Jane Fonda said it's better for you. Jane Fonda apologized for saying that. My mother never did. But she fed me fucking steamed broccoli. and steamed vegetables. So this day I can't have steamed broccoli.
Months.
So you know what I did? I stole money, right? And I went to the bakery to get pain au chocolat and fucking like pure sugar.
Yeah.
And I did that for a long time. Why? Because I was fucking hungry, being tortured at home, sympathetic reaction in both cases, sugar.
Yeah.
Which fed it even more. But I think somewhere I associated a sympathetic reaction with hunger, which is not correct. So instead of being angry, I just got hungry. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Because how do you get angry at your mother when you're a kid? You don't. So I think I directed that anger, never expressed, into other facets, and hunger was one of them. So since I changed the nutrition 4 months ago, I've discovered that what hungry is, and it's not what I thought it was at all.
Yeah.
I had to go like, see, that's the problem with words too. You can associate words to the wrong thing. And by the way, I've discovered that people use words that do not necessarily indicate what they really think.
I think that's an important next step.
I've realized that in life.
Is now we move up one more layer.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. So but again, the base layers, the important ones, the matrix is the nervous system, and then it goes to the gut. So now we back to the last 10% of. So if we think we are humans because of I think therefore I am, then that means we are 10% human and 90% alien, or whatever you want to call it. But that's a deeper philosophical stuff. But now we go into what was developed last 100,000 years ago, the rational brain, word and everything. This is where the task positive, task negative comes from, that we talked about in the last podcast.
And we got into this a little bit last time because this is where whatever being that we were had to take the next step into creating a society.
Right. So the rational brain is 100,000 years ago. If you look, it's when we really start to become tribal. Right? If you look at the Neolithic village, it's about 10,000 years ago. Right? This is very new from an evolution perspective. Right? You're talking about the nervous system 500 million years old. Last 100,000 years, we start to really live, we start to develop as true humans, tribe and stuff like that. The Neolithic village is 10,000 years old, right? Maybe a little bit more, but not that much, right? It's okay. So now imagine a society 20,000 years ago where you live in a group of 150 people. Outside is 100 predators that are just looking to chop your head off, right? Within that village, you're also going to have to establish morals, right? Because you need structure. Why? Because otherwise you're all going to die.
Yeah.
So it's Freud who said again, the first man to throw an insult instead of a rock created society. So at that time, what is necessary is a basically brain that allows you to throw an insult instead of a rock. What does that mean? It means it needs to downregulate things. It needs to, every time I want to fucking stab you, I'm going to have to think, wait, should I do this or not? Is that good? So it creates words. So it needs to shut off your nervous system that tells me to kill you and make you go, dude, are you sure about this? So the rational brain developed as a downregulation mechanism that makes you ask a question every time you need to act. Why? Because in that society it's very necessary. Because if you just act, you die. Why? Because you kill all the best warriors in your tribe to be the prime guy, so you have all the girls. Yeah, and the second...
everybody dies.
And everybody dies.
Yeah.
So the first thing life had to create is a way to downregulate you, right? To stop allowing you to act based on your nervous system, based on aggression, so socialization comes in, but way more than socialization. It's not enough to socialize because otherwise, again, you'll be friends with the guys you like, which is probably weaker than you, and then you'll want to kill all the stronger guys. But if you do that, then the tribe is weaker and you're all going to die. This has been seen with chimpanzees, where the leaders of the tribe are not the strongest one. Because the strongest one are warrior-based and they're ready to kill everybody. That is not who the female is going to mate with. That's different from the lobsters. They're going to mate with the one that can fight, but also that can socialize. That is a true tribal leader. A tribal leader is not someone who's going to remove the strong one from his tribe. It's going to want to make everything work with them. And we saw that in chimpanzees. That's the next step of evolution, where it's not about being the biggest badass out there like the lobster. Now it's about being a badass, but being able to socialize with the other strong guys so that they work for the good of the tribe.
And that's when we invented politics.
But okay, but so it's a down-regulating system.
And that's so it's almost meant to dampen the noise of like everything else.
It's a dampening mechanism.
Yeah.
So that's what task negative is.
Yeah.
And that we've seen the connections, right? Task negative is a system designed to dampen your nervous system and the voices that are there to allow you to think, to create a society where we can live. To do that, he has to dampen the other voices. And 10,000 years ago, it is very, very necessary. So the task negative network created a sense of self, right? Created a belief system, created words, created you thinking about the past and the future. Like the list is over there. It's memories of yourself, social evaluation, story comprehension, oral history, and all that stuff. So basically, if you look at the task negative, those are all the things that were created to allow us to live in society. How? By dampening the noise, by dampening the voice of your nervous system and your gut flora and everything. Imagine the conflict resulting from that. Right? So was it necessary? Yes, it was. It was extremely necessary back then. But now we moved into, sorry, you're gonna have to block that. We moved into a society that is safe, where dampening of the nervous system now is starting to hurt us. Back then we had to do it because it was 150, but we moved into a very safe society. The difference is we don't go sympathetic anymore.
So we end up actually almost feeling so much less because of it. Yeah.
Because we have no sympathetic reaction. The only time you're sympathetic now in real life is when you're hungry. You don't fight anymore. You don't fight for women anymore. You don't fight for your house, for what is it called? Yeah, for a place to live. You're neither hot or cold. You don't have to move. You take a car. Like, okay, so you again, what do? You throw insults now, not stones anymore, right? So, but the problem with insults is they're not an action. They're actually the opposite of an action. So you use word as an opposite of actions now, which is necessary for society. But you have to understand, life doesn't care about you personally, it cares about the numbers, it cares about us as a species surviving. So it blocked actions in order to throw insults and not rocks.
Do you think that craving for sympathetic has something to do too with, or do you think that has something to do with the fact that we get a new tool now, like the internet, that's introduced new?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you get people who will just fucking come unhinged at about anything possible.
But what if it's not, we all look at it as a negative.
That's true, yeah.
We all think it's a negative. What if it's deep inside what maybe life in itself, right? Or the matrix is recognizing that society has changed, that there was a time 10,000 years ago where it was necessary to dampen that voice, but now that we removed all physical actions from our lives.
Or we maybe just overcorrected a bit.
Exactly.
Too far. Yeah.
So now basically nervous system is like, okay, but now we need to upregulate. We downregulated for 10,000 years, but now we created a safe society when we need to upregulate. And so you put enough people together, that's finality. A society more complex is being created up to the point where it creates something that is called the internet. And on the internet, there's more people communicating.
What is that?
It was the same thing. I guess he was still filming. Whatever.
Yeah, we're killing it.
Now we killed it, yeah. And it's basically building the internet where more people can communicate. And what you get out of that, you get upregulation. Now you get the nervous system going sympathetic. People don't use the internet to love each other.
No.
They need the internet to hate each other. But because maybe there's a need for the sympathetic, finally a sympathetic reaction that is starting to come up. Maybe it's society trying to balance itself out.
It's
just
very
like the Matrix does with Neo and
if you look and see
Agent Smith.
Look at what goes viral on the internet.
Yep.
It is things that will either make you really, 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 really just happy and feel warm. Very, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like some wonderful story about a kid gets adopted. You're like,
Gold
oh
Coast.
fuck, don't look
That's
at
the
me.
only thing I follow is
Don't look at me.
Yeah, it's Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Like, you know that thing? It's like, that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's the only thing I follow.
And then
you follow Trump. Just to get pissed. Just to go, you motherfucker.
Yeah, you know, and then
Sorry,
there's somebody that'll have something on there. It's like, you know, oh, these guys were fucking beating dogs or something. And it's like, but the things that get the most views are the things that will either make you really mad. It's an extreme reaction.
All right.
And it's like,
so,
pulls you in,
and we think
that's
it's a problem.
engagement.
And we think it's a problem. We think it's a negative. I believe it's the matrix correcting itself toward upregulation.
It's just a necessary adaptation at this point.
Because we have removed all actions and all sympathetic reaction, and society is like, fine, and I'll give you another one. I believe is we need upregulation, and society is finding a way to do it.
And we'd be filling that cup up no matter what. It just so happens that we have this completely new tool with the internet.
Or maybe we created a tool to do that.
Possibly.
Again, life is far smarter than we are. I don't put it past finality to create his own way.
So what if we take it one step further? Let's say that was a thing that was put on there, and now what you have is this thing that is almost completely devoid of life or death consequences.
Exactly.
In which you can then fucking come uncorked at whatever you want.
Exactly. But if we do that, though, we risk going toward rocks instead of insults a little bit too much. So to me, the solution, we're going back, is training. We have to find a way to train to go toward upregulation. That means we don't need to train the rational brain. What we need to do is we need to train the nervous system, which is all the stuff we've been doing at StrongFit. Like I have workouts that are designed to hit the nervous system, like to hit a sympathetic reaction. And it's been fascinating because once I put them into a very specific thing, I'll see the moment where they hit anger. And they're going to choose to go past it and go like, mushing, like a task positive and go like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and feel awesome and elated for like 3 days and high as shit because I triggered such a strong nervous system reaction. Or they're going to bounce off and then words come out. Oh, I did this because of that, and here comes the justification.
You do exactly what I did, which is go 18 minutes in, this is fucking stupid, I'm not doing this anymore.
Exactly. Right? And did you feel a sense of change being challenged? Like, no, I'm bored, I don't want to do that. Oh, yeah. No, you hit inside. Where you go like, I'm not doing this.
And I can tell too the things that would start coming is like, all right, listen here, with these movements, these muscle groups here, we're getting way outside of the rep ranges.
I'm very stressed lately, and then I need to go get my wife tomorrow, and then right now my life is not where it should be for me to do this. And
these are outside the rep ranges that these movements were designed for. What am I doing here? This
what
doesn't
you
make sense.
Just talked about, a belief system.
Yeah, exactly. You just plug those things in and go, I'm fucking done.
Because it challenged your belief system.
Yeah.
Which that's not how I do this movement. Again, belief system, right? So you went full-blown into task negative, where I'm trying to get you to task positive. But to do that, I need to basically make you lose words.
Yeah.
So task positive is that no mind. Remember the movie with Tom Cruise in Japan, The Last Samurai?
Yeah.
When he's fighting the guy comes, too many minds. Mind the people, mind the sword. Too many minds. No mind. This is very racist when I do the Japanese accent, but
it just sounds
it's my
like
favorite movie.
I
will move to Japan and live there. One day I will leave Holland and I'll move to Japan. I'm telling you, all of you guys, it will happen one day.
Hold on. Do you know who else lives in Japan?
No.
I believe David Lee Roth.
No shit.
Lives in Japan.
He must be a mega star over there.
Has practiced sword fighting in an apartment with like his a parrot and a dog or some shit for like 15 years.
No shit.
And I don't think anybody knows who it is there. I think he just like kind of hides out. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
So he's not like a major movie mega star in Japan.
I think he pretty much lays low.
Cut his head off.
I think he's still got hair.
Oh, he's still got hair.
I highly recommend the David Lee Roth episode on the Rogan podcast.
I gotta watch this.
It's old. It's probably 2 or 3 years old, but it was fucking fascinating.
Oh, I gotta watch this now.
Him living in Japan was great.
That's so awesome.
I can fully picture you just taking up sword fighting and.
Oh, I would. Well, jiu-jitsu, go really back up, but I totally would. One day I'll move to Japan. Like it's been in the making for a very long time, but it was the same idea, right? So when you go to no mind, that means you went to a full nervous system. So basically, what you did is you remove your belief system, you remove the down regulator, you remove everything that takes you away from action. Mm-hmm. If you look, it's a binary system. Like everything else, there's a binary system there. There's a task negative, the task positive. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they work against each other, and sometimes they work one by itself. If I want to go to full, so the full task negative is your rational brain, 100%. The full task positive is your nervous system. And I'm going to try to switch you from one to the other by removing words. To remove words, I have to remove your sense of self. That means I have to kill you.
Which isn't fun.
I have to kill your sense of self. Yep. But isn't that the burn the questions thing?
That's exactly
right.
It.
That's when I'm on the sled, and the first 50 feet, I'm fucking dying, telling myself, oh my God, I'm dying. And then there's a switch where I'm going to kill my sense of self. Literally, I'm going to kill myself, be reborn into the task positive where I'm not thinking. So I'm not telling myself anything because it's about me reaching pure action, the other side of the parking lot, which I've been talking about since the Barbell Shrug podcast. That's what burning the question is. It's burning the words. That's why I say, burn your soul, burn your questions, make your soul bleed, because you have to kill your sense of self to go into a full nervous system thing. And this is why we loved CrossFit at first before you start pacing, because you had to ask the hard questions. You start moving and you're like, now what? But because there are people pushing you and then you go, I need to go to 21 reps, you push past the words and you entered that place where there is no words, where we all want to be. You know why? Because that's the place where the nervous system lives. That's the voice, that's the conversation you want to have. You want to talk to your nervous system, not to that fucking sense of self, that fucking task negative network that just keep bringing you back down, because that's his job. The job of the rational brain of the task negative network is to downregulate you so you stop acting. Because at some point it was necessary to throw insults and not rocks. But understand that this is why you feel like this all the time. When you have a workout and you wonder why you can't push, why you want to quit, because, by the way, those are not judgment being passed on you. Those are questions. It is the job of that part of the task negative network to ask you questions. Why? Because it tries to downregulate you, because those questions are necessary. Otherwise, we're back to killing everybody, which is not good for the species, right? Yeah. But you have to understand those are questions. That's all. They're not judgment. They're not orders being made onto you. They're only questions. And you have the right to answer those questions. You can't answer the questions in words, though. Yeah. That's not what the answer is. The answer, you don't answer with words. The answer is with this. With that, there's no words there. I'm going to do the thing, right? With your willpower, with your commitment to do stuff. But it's here. It's not there. You don't get to go like, yes, I want to do this. No. That's not how you answer. That's you're shying away from it. You answer with this, where you go like, no, I'm stuck. There's no words there. There's only you moving forward.
And as far as like that goes, right? Like when we talk about how talking is just, it's like all of the word stuff is just a matter to slow you down a little bit, right? Just to tone your shit down. It's a little safer that way.
It's to teach you first.
Yeah, but there is not a lot of learning to be had in that space.
All right, so let's talk about that. So what is is there a need for task negative network then?
Absolutely.
Into this society? Exactly, absolutely. So I'm not saying words, so the job of words is to downregulate you, right? But why? Because there is the first part of learning where you need to be downregulated. You do jiu-jitsu, first time you go against a black belt, you should really slow down because you're about to get killed, but you don't know that. So you go, then you get submitted twice and you go like, maybe I should slow down. Right? You start talking to yourself. Why? Because it's fucking necessary, because you don't know shit. So how do you learn? If you learn, try to go through the nervous system, that's alpha 0, you're going to fail a million times. That's okay when you're learning to play chess, but it's not okay when you do jiu-jitsu, because that means you could lose and die.
Yeah.
So the system got created to establish in a way the rules of learning. So the first part is you actually need to memorize. You need to downregulate and create a belief system, right? Because this is jiu-jitsu. I need to believe the way to sweep someone is with the technique that I'm being told. I need to memorize the technique and I need to believe this is the proper way of doing it. That's why trust in your master is so important, right? But now you're creating a belief system that jiu-jitsu allows you to sweep by doing this, by doing that. That's why you see that for jiu-jitsu, but you see that for everybody. This is why when someone starts to learn, if you question that, they get like this. What do you mean? Like that's that guy at the guy in Utrecht, like for the seminar with the 800-pound deadlift. He got very upset with me because I was starting to say, no, it's not about the chemistry, it's about the nervous system. That shocked him into a place where he got very aggressive. Why? Because I challenged his sense of self. Why? Because he was in a memorization phase where he needed the task negative network to take over.
That's why it's always funny too how sometimes the people who argue the most often are those who know the least.
Yes, that's why. Because they're in a memorization phase.
Yeah, and maybe not, I don't want to say know the least actually, because it is, but they have learned based on memorization.
No, those are the white and blue belts.
Yeah.
So they know the list.
And outside of, but
but they know the list compared to the black belts.
Yes,
not compared to other people.
Exactly.
But compared to the black belt, they know the list.
Yeah. Because some of these are very knowledgeable people, but they're just...
No, they have information, not knowledge. Yeah, so they're very informed people, but they're not very knowledgeable people. Yeah. And that's the problem. They're in the first phase of learning where the task negative network has to take over.
And I also think at that point, their identity is tethered to those beliefs, but it's so new that it's just... They got to fucking hang on really tight.
Because that's what it is. Okay, task negative network is your sense of self. Yeah. And it's also your belief system, and it's also your memorization. So that means that you cannot memorize without a sense of self being attached to it.
Yeah.
So it's not even that they're different. It is the same thing. Your sense of self is linked to your memorization, is linked to your morals, And that's why you have people that have such a strong reaction, but also make the stupidest argument. Well, that's not what what do they tell you? That's not what I believe, first of all, right? And they'll make weird moral argument about that's not right to do it like that. What's right or not right about doing a barbell row?
Or it becomes them from their place of with their sense of self, they'll just attack you personally.
But they have to. That's the point. Like, I'm not even mad anymore because I understand that they have to, because in that phase of their learning behavior, they need their sense of, it's not even they need, their sense of self is attached to that moment of learning. It's not even necessary. That's how the brain works. When you're in that memorization phase, your sense of self is attached to it because they are placed in the same part of the brain. And your morals as well and everything. That's why you get so shocked and so offended when I say something you don't understand that does not fit, not that you understand, that do not fit your belief system. Because I shocked you, that means you're still in a memorization phase, very necessary phase, primordial phase of your learning behavior. And then that means that if you're still in that phase and you listen to me, you'll go, fuck you. No, I refuse. Because now you're in an information phase instead of a knowledge phase. That's going to be very hard to deal with.
So is it, as someone is learning something new, do they have to, that's the problem, they still have to go through that?
You know why? Because when you learn something new, you have to first establish a map.
So you have to plug those things in. They have to be
permanent
and real to you until you get all the way through it.
And how do you make things real to you? You believe in them.
Yeah.
So before you learn, you have to believe. So it's true that when Nietzsche said there's two types of people, the ones who want to learn, the one who want to believe. But that means that believing is the first phase.
Gotcha.
Right? And from believing, you'll go to learning. But that means that if you're in the believing phase, you will get offended a lot. And it is necessary because you need to make things real for you, as you said, and that means you need to believe. If you don't believe in your coach, if you don't believe in that CrossFit is the best thing ever, then you won't be good at it. Because you're not establishing the roadmap that is necessary for you to move forward. So I need you to believe in your coach, in CrossFit, and be fucking part of the cult. Yeah, because at first, you need to be part of the cult. Otherwise, you never get good at it. That's why I don't mind at first. But that's step one. Problem is if you stop there. Now that means you never learn. You have information now. You did that first phase, which means you created the map. Okay, awesome. Now you have a belief system. You believe in the shit all the way. Awesome, great. But you have to understand now that the map is not the place. There is a difference. We were in Prague with Yaya, and I'm on Google Maps, and I'm basically about to go around the building we're trying to get in by looking at the map. To get into the building, I'm about to when the building is fucking right there, I'm about to go around till Yaya says it says museum right there. I'm like, oh, you dumbass. So I did it to myself. I look at the map instead of looking at the place.
So the map isn't
the map is not the place.
It's not the place. It's more like it's really more like just something that we've created to help us understand the place.
To start to believe the place is real. I look at the map going, oh, there's a place right there. I look at the reviews, it looks good. The place is real, let's go. So I need the map to start taking actions. There's going to be very hard to take action without the map. I mean, you could, but then you're going to fail 4 million times like AlphaZero did. The difference is AlphaZero doesn't mind failing 4 million times. Why? Because he has no ego and he has time.
Because it doesn't feel like the lobster every time it loses.
Exactly. And he has time. Well, we don't.
We don't. Yeah.
So that's why memorization and that mapping process is so important. The problem is, if you want to learn, you have to go past it. So you're going to have to understand that the map is not the place. So now you see the place. Guess what? The place is not like the map, because now it's real. That means you're going to have to explore, right? You're going to have to try this, you're going to have to try that. Now you try the AlphaZero way, because now you have at least a guiding principle where you go, okay, I have a map, I know more or less where things are, now let me see what those things are. Remember, you don't know what they are. Right now you have a map, so the problem is we built your belief system very high, so you're extremely confident in yourself, even though you know shit. So that's me at 20. Like you've seen those fucking 19-year-olds, they know everything. I was one of them, a little punk, if I could see myself. Oh, I would love to meet myself because I would slap the shit out of me. But you know everything at 19, 20. Why? Because you just finished, you're finishing school, you're finishing your belief system, you're leaving home where you've been told what to do your whole life. You were at school where you were told basically how the world is. Right. how everything is. And so you're at 19, your belief system is to its max, and you're supremely confident, and you know every fucking thing there is to learn. And those old guys at 28 can go fuck themselves, right?
Because you just spent 19 years having, your mommy told you you're special.
Yes.
And
you're a snowflake, and you know everything.
Yes.
And everybody is old and don't know life, which is my favorite conversation. And so now you're about to realize that you're entering from a belief system into a learning system. And that hurts. Because now you're about to discover reality, which is the map is not the place. Mm-hmm. A map is safe, the place isn't. And welcome to reality.
And there's a lot of friction in that transition then. Because everything is pushing.
Because why? Because your belief system is being crushed. Yeah. So every single time you go, so this is the map, right?
And it's fucking, and part of it too is that you find out that you're fucking wrong all the time.
On everything.
You know what I mean? Every way you're just like, fuck, again?
And you fail like 80% of the time too, because of course, because now you're trying shit and you have no skills. Yeah. You don't know shit. You're incapable of living on your own. You don't even know what a job is. You realize you're behind everybody and that you've been lying your whole life.
And that learning process, I suppose, is running concurrently in many different things that you have going on in your life and your job.
And the girls are all going for guys that are 25, have their life together, actually make money. So you're like, what the fuck do I do now? And you still have pimple on your face.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right? And so imagine this right there. So you go into the real world and basically every single thing is going to bring you back here because it's going to basically confront your belief system now. And so your sense of self is being challenged continuously. That's the second phase of learning, which is exploring. And that's the hardest one because you're going to be smacked in the face, literally, every single time because you go, wait, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because it's a challenge of your belief system and of the map. It's a challenge to your sense of self. It's a challenge to your morals. It's a challenge to your sense of self. So your sense of self will be challenged at every single step of the way, and it fucking hurts. And guess what? This is the only way to learn. Growth is there.
And I really like this map. I actually like that you use the map analogy because what, to me, I like is just Google Maps is a very common thing. Everybody uses it, right?
Did it ever make you go like this to go to the same place?
It's done that. But a lot of times for me, I will stick with it because I know at the end of that fucking dot is the place that I need to get to, right? So I'll go and I get to all the shit. And it looks convoluted and a mess on the map, but whatever. I know where it ends. I know it gets me from A to B. But then when you actually get out in the real world and you walk that deal, I'm living in a totally new country. I had to do this fucking yesterday. And so I walk total of 6 miles, I might add, by the way, which is more than I expected. But I'm looking at the map, I'm like, boy, this is going to be, I'm going to have my nose on the phone. It was a mess to get around. But once I got all the way there, the way back, it was very easy. I had already gone through it once. Exactly. I did know, I was like, oh, I've been here, I know where this goes, and it was all simple.
And you know what happened on the way back? You could actually see the city.
Yes, exactly. And I could not on the way there. I didn't get to enjoy it a bit. As a matter of fact, I didn't observe anything. I was seeing new things the whole way back. But then the next step is, for me, is when I get in there and I start, the next time I walk that same route, I might bike it. It's a little further than I want to be walking. But is to then, now that I know a few landmarks and where to be, is now I can find the fastest way, the best way.
And you can try to make a left.
Yeah. And I'm going to be like, you know what, I thought about going this way, but the map told me to go left. Like, I'm just going to go this way.
And by the way, you're going to go like, you know what, I've seen what's on the right. Let me see what's on the left.
Yeah.
You might find a good coffee shops on the way there. You might. So, and again, the biggest point of all this is by having your nose on the phone, you missed the entire fucking city. So you didn't learn anything.
Exactly.
You memorized, didn't learn shit, and you missed the entire city by having your nose in the phone.
Yeah. And so that explore process, I'll be able to learn that single route.
Are you going to get lost?
Exactly.
You're going to get lost sometimes.
Yeah. And then once I get into where you're able to just play. Yeah. And it's like, all right, I'm going to go here. Let's check this out. Let's check this out.
And that's the third phase of learning, which is where Mushin comes in, where now you're in task positive, where you've explored left, right, go this way, this way, this way. You know all, let's say all the ways, let's perfect world. Yep. You know all the ways from this spot to this spot in Vienna. Now you know exactly where to go and which route to take, and now you can actually look around, not be nervous about getting lost or anything, and enjoy the city fully, going like, this is beautiful, I didn't see that last time. Because you were so busy being scared of getting lost or whatever, like you had to fucking memorize and then after that explore, that you missed all the fun.
Yeah.
Now you can be all action going, I'm going to go there, and now you can look around and actually enjoy life. So now both are working together.
Well, and then if someone comes in and says, you know, this route's fucking stupid, and I then will know, well, there's about 40 ways to get there, so whatever.
It's all good.
I don't have to.
I tried it. You know what? And it might be stupid to you, but I like it because I get to see. And this is the argument now that people throw at me with the studies and everything. They say like, yeah, but this road right here is 100 meters faster. And I'm like, yes, but this road right there allows me to see the river, allows me to see to go through the park, which I enjoy a lot more than being on a busy street with all the cars and the fumes going my way. So I'm willing to walk 100 meters more by going through the park, which makes the ride a lot more enjoyable than taking the busy street, which stresses me out, even though it's 100 meters longer. But to someone who's only looking at the map, he'll go, but this is faster, so therefore you're stupid.
I'll wrap this up on an analogy just on that. I remember when you had first moved here, how long were you here before I came here in June? Like maybe a few weeks or a month?
Oh, 2-3 weeks. Because we moved here on June the 2nd.
Okay, so just a couple weeks. And I remember coming here, first off, it's way more biking than I expected it to be.
You were sweating.
It was so bad because it was June, and it was actually pretty cool.
It was actually,
I was not.
It was that bike was not the best.
But I remember coming. We biked out here, just by here, because you weren't even in here yet. We hadn't signed the lease, and I remember coming out by here, and then when we went back, you took this road, and we go this way. And we're running on it's like a bike-only trail. And then it loops around some shit. And then we go back around, and the whole time I'm going, all right, here's the deal. When we came here,
what the fuck is that guy going?
It didn't seem like a very fast route when we came here, a very direct route already. It was further than I want it to be. And now we're going all the way around this other shit. And by the time we got back, what I had realized was that was just the road where it was quiet. It was peaceful. You spent as much time riding along the canal on that road. And then I found that probably about half the time when you leave here, you take that road. And then sometimes you'll just take the one that's a little more direct. And I think that's important, that once you have understood every route to get to a certain place,
which one do you feel?
Which one do you want to do? Yes. And I think that's really important.
And by the way, but that's a very important question, because I believe we also, like in the fitness industry, to relate that to training, is we remove the human element. That part of which one do you fucking want? Not because it's the fastest, not looking at the map, which one do you want to take? Which one will make you enjoy the bicycle race, the bicycle ride all the way home? Does that matter that you enjoyed the ride home? Of course it does, because even if you're going to look at the chemistry, it makes you happier, it makes you less stressed next time. It's like we removed that question of which one do you want to do?
Yeah, because if getting home the fastest is what's going to make you the happiest, then so be it. But if enjoying that process is the best, then just do it.
Okay, but then again, like you're riding the map, but then you're missing.
You know that riding the shortest distance is what's going to make me the happiest. but no, what I am saying though is like when we get through all of that, is all of a sudden then you have, after you've figured out all the maps, then you pick the route that you just want to go on, is then you don't have all this conflicting noise where you're worried about which is the best. It's like, no, this is the one I want to go.
But even if you go the quickest, sometimes you go the quickest because you don't want to sweat or anything. But what if I take such a beautiful way home that it allows me to not think? Therefore, that time will feel like it's going a lot faster than the other one.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a human element that if you look like everything is a map, makes no sense. 20 seconds is 20 seconds. I mean, let's not go into Einsteinian point of you getting near a black hole.
We will spend the next 90 minutes on relative.
Yes, exactly. But so if we remove black holes of that question, 20 seconds is 20 seconds. But that's not true. On the human level, it's not true. 20 seconds with your wife is not 20 seconds with the guy you hate the most.
Exactly.
So it's not true. And yet we have that whole like scientific way of looking at things, that cold way of doing this and this. To me, just a bullshit excuse, meaning you're only in an information-based task negative network part of your brain where you're like 20 seconds is 20 seconds. That's not true. That is a belief system. The truth knowledge tells you that 20 seconds is not 20 seconds. So 20 minutes spending by the canals when I'm enjoying is not the same as 90 minutes spent in the middle of cars and everything, because the stress level is going to hit me physiologically in a way that the ride to the canal will not. So that minute that I gain actually will cost me a number of stress that might be costing me 3 minutes of my life.
Maybe 5 years.
Who knows? Yeah, maybe I get hit. Maybe, you know what I mean? So it is not as simple as Google Maps told me that. Right? Obviously, that's an analogy to coaching and training. But you know what I mean? So to me, the key is the map is necessary. But there is something past it, and you have to reach that, right? So that's why, to me, people get so upset, so offended on stuff like that. And it's not bad in a sense that it only indicates that they're in the first phase of learning.
They still got their nose in the map.
Which is okay, because it's necessary. But if you want to grow, if you want to go past that fucking blue belt, you will have to go into that exploration phase, which is a purple belt and more. We actually have a podcast coming up about coaching. You will have to go past that. So stop building the shiniest map possible. If I have that, is when your map is accurate enough, then you need to go explore. Stop getting stuck there and building a brighter map. So now your map is in 3D. Awesome. It's still not a place. Right? And that's what I see too much of, is coaches that have a 2D map that is just fine, and instead of going to explore, now they're going to turn the map into a 3D, and now they're going to turn it into a virtual reality where they get to put the thing, and it looks like the real thing.
They're going to color code the streets.
Exactly, and it looks like the real thing, and I got news for you, it's still not the real thing. You're still going to have to explore and realize that the route that you take by the canals is better than the route you take through cars, because welcome to life. It doesn't work like that.
I like it. Well, I think we've got through everything.
Wow, on target. I like it. We're getting better by the day.
If anyone wants to read my notes, I'll sell you this piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. The doctor's notes.
You're not going to be able to read.
Exactly.
Well, let's wrap up. Yep. You can find more information out on all this at the seminars, Coaches Week. All that information is at strongfit.com/seminars.
Our YouTube channel, StrongFit.
YouTube, StrongFit. We've got StrongFit equipment. You can also find the equipment on strongfit.com. You can link through there. There you can buy sandbags, all the good stuff. Shirts. I'm not wearing one. Probably should
That one you can find in some Chinese website on Facebook where my credit card got hacked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that I had to change my. I had like 3,000 euros of 100 euro charges, and the company called me. I was like, no, I did not. And there's a fucking list. I'm like, what? No, I did not buy any of those things. I got refunded, thank God.
It's like buying counterfeit baseball jerseys on the internet.
That's pretty much what I bought.
It's a risky game.
It was a risky game, obviously.
So what else do we have? StrongFit1 on Instagram. It's Julien.
Always.
I'm Tyler F. and Stone on Instagram. I think that's all the plug-in we need. That's all there is. Awesome. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
That sounded dirty.
That is.
But see you guys.
Perfect.